It was one of those deceptively peaceful Sunday evenings, the kind that lulls you into a false sense of security. The world slows just enough for the noise of the week to fade. But the quiet leaves you exposed, unable to hide from the truths you've been avoiding. The kind of evening where the weight of accumulated disappointments becomes too heavy to ignore and self-deception loses its grip. I didn't plan on ruining my marriage that night. Sarah, my closest friend since college, had stopped by unannounced. She was good at sensing when I needed company, even when I didn't say a word. We sat together in the living room, our bodies sinking into the familiar cushions of the couch, the warm amber glow of a single lamp casting soft shadows against the walls. A half-empty bottle of wine sat on the coffee table, its contents gradually stripping away my emotional armor. As far as I knew, Nathan was upstairs, probably rummaging through boxes in the storage room, working on one of his many half-finished projects. He'd always been good at occupying himself, especially lately when conversations between us had become sparse and strained. We still moved through the motions, meals cooked, bills paid, polite exchanges about groceries or the thermostat. But the emotional intimacy that once tethered us had withered to a fragile thread. The silence between us had become its own language, and that night I couldn't pretend anymore. "I don't know, Sarah," I said, pressing my fingers into my temples as if trying to squeeze out the ache behind my eyes. "Some days, I just wish I hadn't married him." The moment the words left my lips, I felt it. A visceral, twisting sensation in my gut, like I'd released something dark and irreversible into the air. The room suddenly felt colder. Sarah stared at me, her brow knitting. "You don't mean that," she said a little too quickly, a little too firmly. But the truth was complicated. I did mean it, at least in that tired, overwhelmed part of me that had been running on emotional fumes. I loved Nathan, or I thought I did, but the love had changed. It wasn't the firecracker passion of our early days, or the comforting steadiness we'd once shared, had become heavy, obligatory, like something I carried out of habit rather than desire. And somewhere on the staircase, hidden in the dimness of the hall, Nathan heard every word. I didn't see him. I didn't hear a creak or a breath. But later, I would imagine the look on his face, frozen mid-step, listening to the woman he'd built a life with quietly confess regret to someone else. The next morning, I noticed the absence before I saw it. The house felt hollow. A coffee machine was silent. Nathan's keys weren't by the door. His boots, the ones he always placed side by side, neatly like soldiers on duty, were gone. At first, I told myself he'd left early for work, maybe even gone to the hardware store. But the unease gnawed at me. He always kissed me goodbye, even on the days we argued, especially on those days. By noon, my anxiety had boiled over. Called his phone. It rang and rang before going to voicemail. Texted nothing. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my laptop, willing some explanation into existence. Then I saw it, an unread email, his name in the sender line. The subject was a single word. Farewell. With trembling hands, I opened it. "I overheard you last night. I wasn't meant to, but I did. You weren't angry. You weren't yelling. That was your truth. And that truth shattered me. I gave you everything I had. Tried, kept showing up. And all this time, you've been quietly regretting me. I won't stay where I merely tolerated. Don't look for me. The divorce papers are already filed. I'm not bitter. I just refuse to be someone's mistake, Nathan." I sat motionless reading those words again and again, each sentence a blow to the chest. There was no bitterness in his tone, no desperation, just quiet resignation, clean break. I rushed to his office building, hoping it wasn't too late. But the receptionist told me he'd resigned that morning, cleared his desk, left no forwarding address. By that afternoon, his number was disconnected. His social media accounts had been wiped. It was as though Nathan had deliberately erased himself from the world we had once shared. I reached out to friends. No one knew anything. His brother was equally vague, saying only that Nathan needed space and wanted no contact. And then, like clockwork, the divorce papers arrived. Everything filled out. His signature already in place. I wasn't asked. I was informed. My role was reduced to that of a formality. Dress signature. I waited for rage to come, or even denial, but all I felt was an aching, unbearable guilt and grief. Not just for the man I'd lost, but for the love I'd allowed to wither. I remembered how Nathan used to look at me like I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. The little gestures, the way he rubbed my back when I couldn't sleep, how he left notes on the fridge when he left early, always with a doodle and a heart. He hadn't stopped trying, and the cruelest part was I didn't even say those words to him. I said them about him when I thought he wasn't listening. That betrayal, the quiet, hidden kind, was worse than any fight we'd ever had because it wasn't born of passion or frustration. It was born of truth, a truth I didn't have the courage to tell him to his face. Months passed. I tried to find him. I even hired a private investigator. But there was nothing. No new residence, no bank activity, no paper trail. Nathan hadn't just left me. He disappeared into the shadows to reclaim his peace, and I understood finally. For Nathan, hearing those words wasn't just a wound, it was a revelation. It confirmed what he had likely suspected in our growing distance, that I had stopped choosing him, that I stayed out of habit, not love. And so, he did the bravest thing imaginable. He let go. Now some nights I stare at the ceiling wondering where he is. If he's happy, if someone else gets to wake up beside him now, knowing he's the best decision they ever made, because that's what he was for me. Only I realized it too late. Nathan vanished without vengeance, without a scene, leaving behind no trace, just the echo of a single sentence. I will regret for the rest of my life.